Mr. Chairman. As we are allowed only for 5 to 6 minutes, so I will try to summarize some part of my presentations because the full paper has sent to the organizers, and I will focus on the final part of my presentation, which is, I think, is of the interest of the workshop today. I think as the session is the way forward towards the 25th anniversary of the ASEAN-India relations, we all know that with the new developments in the situations of the regions and also Asia-Pacific, the ASEAN community has become into being in the end of 2015, and India has also made remarkable achievement in its national development and international significance. So I think now it is a time for building a stronger ASEAN-India strategic partnership in the 21st century, heading to the 25th anniversary of ASEAN and India relations. Based on that assumptions, I think my paper would have three main contents. The first is how ASEAN look at the India look is and later on it act is policy, and a quick review of India-ASEAN relations in the recent year. And the final part would be the way forward. About the India look East Asia policy ASEAN perception, we know that the LEP is a cornerstone of India foreign policy towards the ASEAN after the Cold War. And the India LEP has undergone two phases. The first phase started with the aim of enhanced economic relations and reached towards the strategic and political and institutional linkage with ASEAN. And later on, I think in 2003, India has started the second phase, became extended and comprehensive with the adoption of extended neighborhood. And we think this shift of Act East policy can be seen as a manifestation of Modi government's stronger commitment to engage with Southeast Asia. About the LEP, the first page, I think during the Indian Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's visit to the Institute of Southeast Asia in Singapore in 1994, he made a speech and which reflects the first phase of LEP with the four contents. I think I just have a very brief content of the first LEP policy. First is to expand Indian influence to the sea and space. Secondly, increasingly mutual understanding and cultural exchange between India and Southeast Asia. Thirdly, would be utilizing enormous resources to India development process. And the fourth point would be promoting cooperation and exchange between India and regional economic political fields. So I think with the first LEP focus on strengthening the relation between India and ASEAN countries in trade, investment, politics, and security. And the first LEPs provide a foundation for for India to join the regional security, economic, and political organization as such, APEC, WTO, and ARF. And India aimed to use economic diplomacy as a pillar in its foreign policy. The second page starts in 2003 and until, I think, 2014. In October 2003, Indian Prime Minister VIII attended the second ASEAN-India Summit in Indonesia, and he made a visit to Thailand. This trip, on one hand, makes an Indian LEP achievement after its inception nearly a decade before under the Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. And I think in early September 2003, India External Affairs Minister Sri Sinha made a speech at Harvard University in which he mentions India's new initiative to Asia. In his speech, he distinguished the differences between the two phases of LEP. The first phase of India Look East Asia policy was ASEAN-centered and focused primarily on the trade and investment linkage. The new phase of this policy is characterized by an expanded definitions of its extension from Australia to East Asia with ASEAN as its core. And we think the new phase will also mark a shift from trade to wider economic and security issues, including joint effort to protect the sea land and coordinate to counter terrorism. And I think recently with the Prime Minister Modi has upgraded the India Look East policy to a greater momentum, which called Act East policy at India ASEAN Summit in November 2014. I think the move to the Act East policy, we can have four content of that. First is the Modi government has broadened agenda for economic development, including connectivity, which I think the connectivity content has mentioned in the first meeting of our dialogue. And secondly, President Modi has also expanded the geographic scope of India Act East policy. And thirdly, Modi's government has put special emphasis on the promoting India's soft power in the regions. And finally, India also fully engaged with the emerging political player in East Asia. He has reaffirmed the centrality of ASEAN in building a stable and prosperous order in the East Asia and Asia Pacific. So we think for 2 decades, India Look East policy has shaped the way India deals with its neighbor in Asia Pacific, leading to the sustainable economic, political, institutional, security, cultural, and sub-regional relations. So I think the India Look East policy was initiated in the early 1990s with the aim of increasing economic ties with Southeast Asia. Since then, the objective of the Look East has broadened to the oil field and to the entire Asia Pacific. So to review the India-ASEAN relation, I think it developed in the political cooperation, economic cooperation, and defense cooperation. Regarding the way toward, we have some recommendations. First, we think in the globalized and interconnected world, top priority of Asia ASEAN-India relations is to ensure an open, inclusive, sustainable, and transparent regional architect for peace and stability in Asia. Both India and ASEAN should stick together to build up a strategic trust, uphold the international law. I think this idea has put forward by some presentations in our dialogue this morning. And secondly, I think in this interconnected world, it is imperative to enhance the global dimension of cooperation in response to common challenges. And thirdly, ASEAN and India should force two ways of economic and trade linkage. ASEAN and India should redouble the efforts to promote India-ASEAN economic relations in the framework of FTAs, ASEP, and ASEAN Economic Community. And fourthly, connectivity should be developed in all dimensions of ASEAN-India strategic partnership. And fifthly, India-ASEAN defense security cooperation should deepen through such a mechanisms like ADMM+1 between ASEAN and other power partners. So we think India and ASEAN could cooperate and coordinate to improve the AIF's operations, and also the dialogue, which we have been running for this time is the 8th times. It would be continued. So looking at the bilateral relations between Vietnam and India, we think that there's a lot of commitment between India and ASEAN, and also particular with Vietnam. So we hope that we should act now, because listening to the presentation this morning, I have the feeling we have a lot of projects put forward, but has not been being implemented. That is the most important thing, that we should act exactly like the President Modi idea. Thank you.